I just remember looking at that MPC and thinking like, those drums came out of that MPC. Like, arguably the best drums in hip hop history. And just remember just vibing with him and having so much respect and just wanting to work with him more.
What was the time like that you two spent together? Was it focused around music?
Yeah, we only focus on music. Me and Common, we'll go play basketball and go to the movies and hang and all that. But me and Dilla, we just, focus on just tracks. He had the organic feel, but still the sonics would break through, and he could give you a warm sound that still cut through speakers. It's like he was making Quincy Jones production sessions just inside of his MPC. Like most producers, that can make music that knocks, which is like 90% of producers can make things that knock, especially with Fruity Loops and all that. The sound was usually colder. And then my sound is known for being very colorful and warm, but sometimes I'd be challenged on my mixes that everything didn't knock as hard as I wanted to. Or maybe by the time it came out it did, but people didn't realize I did 27 mixes to get to that point. But Dilla, every time, it's like that kick just sat so perfectly. And like the swings, his shuffles on his beats, his snare choices, the way he sampled shit, it was just like, it just sounded like, felt like drugs. I mean, his music just sounded like good pussy.
To the layman who doesn't necessarily understand the process of isolating, different sounds and drum beats and how those are sort of layered like textures, could you describe that?
Yeah, well, when you first start producing, you can start from sampling, you can start from programming a kick drum, a hi-hat and a snare, and then you start from like, my first beat to, getting to the level of like the masters that use sampling and, they sample drums from the 70s and the 60s and, mix it with some sample from the 80s and a little word sample from KRS or something on top of it, or a James Brown scream. And this combination is how people define their textures and who they are. And the hip hop producers are very similar to the fashion designers, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in fashion, is because it's the same thing. People sample from like take a military jacket and and modernize it. So we would take like I'll take an Otis Redding sample and modernize it, and texturally what Margiela was to fashion is really similar to what Dilla was to music. It really parallels a lot, because Margiela would do these interesting, flips and abstract flips of the way, the way you think about like a bracelet. You take a small ring and make it like an oversized bracelet, or flip a jacket inside out, or cut all the edges really raw. And that rawness is, that's what people are looking for, that reality, that life. It's like you want good and bad, you want salt and pepper, you want hot and sweet. And he was able to capture all that, and then sometimes just give you such an amazingly emotional, like connective, like melody. I don't know if connective is a word, but I create my own language. I don't give a fuck. So, and that's what he is, because as hip hop producers, we were all designers in a way. So perhaps maybe I was like the Marc Jacobs of hip hop, and then he was like more like the Margiela of hip hop, and Pete Rock was the Jean-Paul Gaultier or something of hip hop, and then Q-Tip was the Galliano or something. It's like all these, because I do this comparison of creatives, and also you could do that same comparison to like Coen Brothers or Tarantino, the way they put textures in. Like I think Tarantino is like Wu-Tang to me. So I always like, do all these like ways that creatives parallel.
Do you feel that Dilla's roots, being from Detroit, how he was affected by Motown, how that influenced his production, and how that brought Motown sampling to the forefront of hip hop at that time?
Yeah, I got a special place in my heart for anyone from like the Midwest. And I think that because it's in the middle of America and so close to Motown, which was my favorite My favorite record label of all time is Motown. You know, that form, that era of music was my favorite. Now, my favorite artist is James Brown. I also love Stax. Like, to me, like Motown and Stax are like Bad Boy and Rough Riders at the height, you know? So you got like Biggie, and then you got DMX, or you could add Rockefeller in with that mix or something. Anyone like with that connection to that place. I mean, if you look at like the two top Grammy winners of all time are from Chicago. And like I'm like on this like path to like, you know, be the top Grammy winner of all time. That Midwestern feel of that middle America soul, people coming up from the South, heritage in the music, and that being born of that culture, you know, the purest, the greatest, you know, musicians come out of that environment. Also, just the struggle that we deal with in those environments, you know, where you're fighting, you know, you're fighting for your freedom, you're fighting for your economic equality with your talent. That's all you got. There's no other chance right there. And you know, that pressure bust pipes, you know, you're gonna, you know, something great. A rose is gonna grow out of that concrete. And that's, you know, Dilla was definitely one of those roses.
Around the time you released College Dropout, Dilla put out his first album with Madlib and Stone's Throw, J-Lib's Champion Sound. Can you talk about that time in hip-hop, that project specifically?
That's the one that has stars on it?
Cover's just like a rubber tire.
I remember the cover though. It's like right when you said it, it's like, I see the J-Lib font popping up. I mean,
I guess maybe a better way to phrase that is, how were their styles different, similar, and then also complementary to each other?
I just think that maybe perhaps might have been a bit more of a scientist, perfectionist, and Madlib might have just been a bit more crazy, just MF Doom, ODB, you know, with it. And that combination is like, you know, that juxtaposition is what made it, you know, so impactful. And also, the fact that that is there, you know, and my respect for that, and the fact that I came from that underground place, is that is the balance, that is the anchor for a college dropout to work. That it has to be anchored in an entire community of people that, you know, believed in a certain type of anti-radio music. And, you know, I guess radio has a connotation because so many people are like, it's so formulaic. When people figure out a formula that works for radio, there's no one that's like, so few people are like fighting against it, and people that are fighting against it don't have the opportunities, or, you know, they get like completely compressed, or, and then that's when you get things like the American Music Awards. When you see it, you're just like, why the fuck would I watch this? You know, where, and it's to the point where it's like, there is no Michael Jackson anymore. You literally got like, you know, pop stars, you know, copying what Mike did and copying what MC Hammer did. There is, that purity is not there because the system compresses, you know, talent so much and tries to demonize the truth, you know, so they can control and sell product and shit. And that's why it's like such a shame when you lose like amazing people who are so rooted in what they do, and they just don't give a fuck about anything else because they know, you know, money or no money, how important it is. It's like when you can, you know, be above the concept of money or something, you know. I'm lucky because I'm from Chicago, and because I'm from Chicago, I don't give a fuck. So I care, but don't give a fuck. That's what it is. Like someone from Chicago is very sincere. They got their heart like that, but they don't give a fuck about what anybody is saying as long as it's from their heart. And that's like what it is to be from Chicago, be from the Midwest. No, this ain't no like fake ass facade. We ain't smiling at people and stuff like that. So if you put me in a position like that, you know. So I imagine it could be harder for people that are trying to fit in, you know, or people who are trying to, or people who are just like not, you know, being successful at doing exactly what they want to do. They have to compromise, you know, have families to feed, they have this and that, and they got to figure out how to make that money. You know, I'm like extremely spoiled and extremely blessed to be able to do songs like Jesus Walks and for them to work. Songs like Can't Tell Me Nothing. For me to be able to keep it real and really make money off of being real is an extremely blessed situation, but it's also a responsibility. So it means like, okay, you've been given this opportunity to be like an inspiration to be, you know, in the lineage of what Dilla did and what Mos Def and Quality and all that. It's like, but you can never forget that. You can never forget about what the point is, the message, what hip hop is about, what like Public Enemy is about. Oh, fuck a Maybach, you know, respect to the Maybach family because I know them. But you know what I'm saying, I feel like people are controlled with like money and perception, and they're very fearful. As an artist, man, Raphael painted Jesus' wife in that Last Supper painting, you know, knowing the Pope was gonna kill him. So as an artist, hey, this is what's gonna happen. So people just deal with humanity, and some people are meant to like fight the war head on, and some people are meant to like run in their house. I'm saying all that to say, as far as how difficult it is, you know, I imagine it's extremely difficult if you can't get paid to do exactly what you want. Then the blessing of life is having a job that's exactly, you know, if you have a job, you know, where you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life.
I'll be working on home designs and looking at references from 3,000 years ago and reading the Old Testament at the same time. So it's like a soundtrack to the visuals of the shapes and the ideas and ideals of what we're creating. A lot of my creative friends, I tell them like the Bible is better than Pinterest, and bring something into space and time we exist in while reflecting thousands of years of truth. Okay, it says, you shall keep my statutes. You should not let your cattle breed with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor shall you wear a garment of cloth made of two kinds of material. I tell my apparel team that the clothes that we're using, like single material. I remember sending a manager I used to work with a really rude email about how every time he wore this wool jacket with leather sleeves, he set culture back by 10 years. I can send him the verse from the Bible that says, you shall not wear a garment of cloth made of two kinds of material.
Tell me a little bit about the creative process where you design one of these.
You start with a sketch, start with a vintage reference. It could start with a previous shoe that we created that we're making a newer version on. You know, feelings of films and experiences that I grew up with. Akira, the movie Akira, my mom took me to see Akira when I was really young, and the shapes and the color palettes and the general mood of the film had always been a big inspiration for Yeezy. And going to auto shows with my dad, you know, the first time I saw a white Lamborghini Countach in real life, and I remember the guy said I couldn't even touch the car, and I was obsessed with this car as a child.
Is there any shoe that Countach is kind of represented in?
There's a little bit of Lamborghini in everything I do.
All right. All right. So
Yeezy is the Lamborghini of shoes.
The idea comes to you, you sketch it out, then what?
We have a team of incredible designers. We'll take the entire design team to Japan. We'll take the entire design team to Zone and talk about, you know, where we'd like to take these ideas. And I mean, it's a painting, it's a spirit that's inside of it that's now translated into these miniature vehicles. I'm just soaking in all the shoes. Like, look at all these, look at these designs, look at these ideas all together. Protos, the versions that you've seen in actuality and the versions that never quite made it. To be able to see inside of this, there's, you know, this is an infinite amount of words in front of you. There's so many prototypes that go into what you eventually get.
How many prototypes do you think per shoe will cycle through before you get to the one that you actually
It's
want?
hundreds. We work on, like I said, miniature vehicles. We work on shoes like someone would work on a car.
Let's say we're looking at 2,000 shoes. How many do you think are prototypes that'll never be available outside of this circle?
I'm not a numbers guy.
Mostly.
I'm a feeling, it's a inspiration, it's channeling, you know, and I'm not a numbers guy. That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing is everyone.
Yeah.
It's all these like calculations. This right here is. You say you love sneakers, right?
Yeah.
You can't calculate love. You love seeing these.
I love seeing them. I'm just curious
What's
how
the
many...
feeling that you get? So when you get joy, do you try to calculate? You know, like if you get a surprise cake from your grandmother and you didn't know she was in town,
Yeah.
do you start asking her about the batter, specifically the frosting?
Perhaps not, but I'm not writing a story about my grandma. So.
Well, that's what people need to realize about artists and people who dedicate their life and go to the hospital and back to bring joy, that they should be loved and treated like how you would treat your grandmother giving you a cake, because these things are made to bring uncalculable joy. So to ask me to somehow translate this to numbers is to ask your grandmother exactly what the recipe of the cake was. There's spirit.
Right.
There's spirit inside of this thing. It's a soul. It's like, that wasn't calculated when Jordan switched hands. The fact that people are seeing all of these shoes are inside of every single shoe. It all flows through. Everything flows into everything. And this is how connected we are as human beings. All of them have a spirit. They're all of the family. There's not one bad shoe. Any of these shoes that even didn't make it 20 years from now, you'll look up and that shoe would be, worth to the numbers guys. What's a Picasso sketch worth? A Warhol sketch. Look from this, put yourself in the center. Just walk right here. You can step on some of these. Come to the middle. Don't worry about stepping on them. I know the maker.
Are any of them talking to you right now?
Yeah, there are a lot that I really love. I mean, I love them all. Really honored to be here tonight around so many creative people, so many dreamers. As a lot of you know, I really love fashion, and it's been a love of mine since as far back as I can remember. In my family, there were tailors, and my grandfather was a carpenter, a upholsterer. I had a cousin that sold bootleg cross colors. Actually, TJ, my cousin, sold bootleg. It's something that I, have always had to fight to be accepted, to love. And I empathize with anyone in this era who's ever loved fashion, because usually it's not like loving the idea of being a lawyer or becoming a doctor. It's like when kids tell their parents that they want to be a fashion designer, it's usually not met with the same response as the traditional held career choices. Even for me as a successful musician, in order to make the transition, it was really all but impossible. People always try to box you in to what they know you best for. Or the most successful artists are as close to who they were when they were 5 years old, or 4 years old, or 3 years old, or when my daughter wakes up and decides to change her career 7 times a day. I have friends that have clothing lines that are in Barney's, and there are people who have managed to make a living out of fashion without going to school, without being properly trained. And a friend of mine who's an artist, his girlfriend showed me a portfolio, and she would bring up some of my friends that were actually successful in fashion, selling their clothing line, saying, this is good enough, and I'm just gonna be like your friend and everything. And all I could say to her is, you use your youth, use this time you have right now to learn as much as possible, to educate yourself, to hone your craft. I was good friends with Louis Wilson from St. Martin's, who taught Phoebe Philo, Alexander Wang, Christopher Kane, Stella McCartney, J.W. Anderson. All of these rock stars that, if you follow Paris fashion and all that, we look up to these people. And she was a really hard instructor. It was like the movie Whiplash almost. Like she got sued like 3 times. Because she was so tough on
what was actually right, what was valid. And I feel that, she passed last year. But even before her passing, I, as a son of two educators, I felt it was more of my responsibility to enforce whenever I had the opportunity and speak up on what was actually right in my eyes. And by default, I've got a lot of haters since then. But it was simply that artist's 3-year-old truth that I wanted to get across. The reason why I would go to fashion shows so much, over the past 10 years is I wanted to see the designers deliver their work in their truest form, exactly how they felt, around all of the issues that go into making a collection, which I know firsthand and fully appreciate. So many celebrities, the average celebrity designer, their fingers don't get bloody. They don't pick up needles. They don't know how to sew. They don't know how to pattern cut. They don't know. I can pin a little bit, but I don't know how to pattern cut. And I respect people who have a craft, who have taken their time to really learn and hone their craft and deliver something of quality, of passion to the world. The fight that Louise Wilson pushed and instilled into her students. The fight that when you talk about students putting 80 hours in and trying to sleep at the school and being dedicated to the project, and it's a tough world out there. You're gonna prepare yourself for politics, bad bosses, hating employees, and usually when you're the absolute best, you get hated on the most. But never stop fighting. No matter what anyone says, no matter how they try to compromise you, compromise your vision. If it's in your gut, if it's in your soul, there's no worldly possessions that should come between you and your expression. As a race, human beings, we're a blip in existence. Death is promised. So what do you do with your life? How do you make the most of it? How do you make your voice the loudest? So I feel extremely honored to see new talent fighting for their voice that I can only imagine they've been fighting for since age 3. That's all. That's a challenge for me is, I designed this thing, we call it the foam runner, and we built a factory for it in Cody, and you can make these in 25 minutes. And what I'm saying about design, I was talking to one of the awesome designers that we just got over at Yeezy. We got like this amazing crew. We got guys that Nike sued us for, and one of these guys, I was trying to hire him for 2 years. He had a non-compete. He had to go surf for a year, and now he's in. And when he does his CAD drawings, it's almost like one shot, one kill. Sometimes you design stuff, you got to do it like 5-8 times. Like his first one is so close to being ready to go to market because he sketches in a certain kind of way. And for the longest, we said, let's. I've been saying I want to get rid of laces, and we still have shoes we sell with laces because it's a popular shoe and people love this shoe, and it hurts me. I feel like Steve Jobs trying to remove buttons off the side of the next Apple. And one of the things that's interesting about this, if you look at most sneakers, if you look at you guys sneakers right now, you have a tongue, and it goes this direction. Mm-hmm. This is one of the innovations about this is one reason why this is one of the most important sneaker designs is this goes this way because it's ergonomic. And I remember putting it on and being uncomfortable with wearing it because I'm so used to way like a Jordan or something fits with my jeans. And I remember talking to Kobe and him talking about having to make sneakers that fit with jeans. And that was a big thing because, that's what we grow up. We grow up wearing, Falconite jeans and Jordans or something like that. So this also, I feel that just the process, when I design, I become like a 3-year-old. I have to go to my gut. I have to forget everything I know and really focus in to what I feel. Like some straight Jedi Yoda, or if I could grab that water bottle, or wouldn't it have been cool if I just did it right now? I should have had a magnet on there. You'd be like, yo, this dude's a wizard. So for me, I'm gonna make this shoe be $20. And, money isn't real, so that means the world should be eventually free. So I'm going to manifest the world being free. My dad, he lives in a DR, and he says, anything that you put in the ground grows. So why do people still go hungry? And I like that in theory, but I was like, man, farming is really hard though, man. I think, I might go hungry if I have someone to farm this food. It's like, but back in the days, we had that skill set. Now we're losing these skill sets that actually we can sustain off of. So with this, and I love giving you guys my riffs. I'm like a human version of Instagram. When you look at Instagram, you look at, you're looking like 100 images a day. I got millions of images in my mind, and the majority of them haven't been realized yet. There's some images that are from my memory, but I got the future that's in my mind that has to be brought. So this is, we talk about hype culture and shoes being sold on the, the resale market, and Yeezy lives in that place. But, I don't like the idea. I don't love the idea that some of the reason why people buy it is just for hype culture, or you ain't got this, or I got this colorway and you don't have it. That type of mentality. I'm an essentialist. I'm a minimalist, and like I will bring the fully A to Z our existence version to existence. Like Victor Gruen designed the shopping centers, but he designed full utopian communities, and people were like, oh, we're just cool with the shopping center. That's all we want. And these ideas that he had never got brought into fruition. A little bit like Disney kind of based Epcot Center on Victor Gruen. But this next frontier of these communities and villages of happiness are way closer to a Kenyan village than it is to a gated community village.
But one of the things about this aversion to hype culture, one of the good things about the hype culture is if people get into your products, they're going to get into you, and they're going to get into your ideas. All these ideas that you have will become a part of their thought process. They'll start thinking about it. And they go, hey, he's got some great points. If people really get into your shit, they're also really going to get into your ideas. I think it's one of the things that make people uncomfortable about you, is you have the courage to have all these bold ideas and to implement them and to do all these different things. That bothers people. And there's a lot of people that don't have that kind of courage, and they are straddled down by anxiety, and they see a guy like you and they try to find flaws. They try to find things that are wrong with it. Instead of looking at the positive aspects of it, they only concentrate on the negative aspects of it. I don't see it that way. I've never saw it that way. I look at you, look at that guy. He can fucking do anything.
There's people who like Tesla, and there's people who, there's a person who killed animals with Tesla cords to make people not like Tesla.
Yeah,
the person
Thomas Edison.
Yeah, who made the electric chair be made with the Tesla cords. So for people who wouldn't like Tesla, Tesla still has inventions that haven't been brought to our society that would have brought more simplicity and happiness to our society.
Like the Westinghouse ability to transmit electricity through the air, which is fascinating. I don't know if that would have worked in today's world with cell phones and all the different electronics and even modern air travel. I don't know if it would have worked, but things would have been different.
People are over designing into industries where they see they can make some money, as opposed to stepping back and saying, how do we look at the entire earth as an opportunity to free everyone and create happiness for everyone?